Hi Lincoln students, my name is Dr. Amy Miller. I've taught different mass media and journalism classes for North Dakota State, Eastern Washington University, and Bellevue College. And I was asked to make this video to briefly explain to you what the difference is between media law and media ethics. By and large, media law exists to protect your First Amendment rights to free press and free speech. Just because they're guaranteed by the Constitution doesn't mean that people aren't going to try to keep these things from happening. Media law exists to make sure that, to the best of everyone's ability, the press can report the way they need to report. Media ethics, on the other hand, is the responsibility of the journalist to report the information accurately, in a timely fashion, and in a well-researched manner. In order to better explain this, we're going to go through a fake story. So let's say that you, as a hotshot reporter, find out that there are reports of corruption going on at the mayor's office in Minneapolis. Now, you need to gather information, and they're not going to want to give it to you even though they're supposed to. You show up and you're trying to, first of all, get documentation. You want all these emails, you want all these files, you want this accounting information. Obviously, they're not going to want to give it to you, but according to the Freedom of Information Act, because they are a government entity, they have to give it to you. So in order for you to do your reporting, you need these documents. They don't want to give it to you, but they don't have a choice. Second source of information you want to pursue are meetings. Once again, they want to talk and negotiate in private. They don't want you to hear the inner workings of what's going on, but there's something called sunshine laws, which allow you to sit in on government meetings in order to report on them, in order to give information about what was discussed. And then, of course, you're probably most importantly going to want to talk to individuals at the mayor's office about who knew what when and how long was it kept under wraps. Problem being, nobody's going to want to talk to you because they're going to lose their job if they do. In order to prevent that, you're going to want to be able to offer them some level of anonymity. And this is where you see things like a senior White House official said, or sources close to the committee have argued that. What they're trying to do is give people plausible deniability. There's 600 people in this organization. Nobody will know you're the one that talked. Or there are 40 other people who knew this information. Nobody's going to know that you're the person who gave it to me, and it protects your source. That's something called shield laws. And it basically means that when you do this, nobody is allowed to force you to reveal who your source actually was. States vary widely in what their shield laws allow or don't allow, but most states actually do have them in order to protect journalists. So once you've created this little bubble for yourself of access to information, we start talking about a shift to ethics. Because you have this information and you have a responsibility to use it correctly, even though in some of these cases, people aren't necessarily going to be able to, for lack of better words, double check on you. A couple examples of where your ethical quandaries might come in. You might say that you want to pay a source. So you're going to give somebody $100 or you're going to buy them a free dinner in order to get them to talk to you. Most journalists won't do this because even though it sounds good and it sounds like you're going to get more interviews, it compromises the information because are they just telling me a good story so that they can get a good paycheck? Another thing that you might be tempted on is nobody's necessarily going to know which source you're using. And you can spin it in such a way that even though this person maybe isn't that close to the information, they sound like they are. For example, according to one Pentagon employee, the Joint Chiefs of Staff have hit a snag in negotiations with Iran. Now, this sounds like it's a really important big deal piece of information, but you know full well that the Pentagon employee that you talked to was the janitor, who knows absolutely nothing. So, you can talk to anyone you want and print it, but it doesn't mean that it's ethical to have done so. Going along with this, you might be tempted to embellish a source. Maybe you didn't talk to enough people. Not enough people would corroborate what you were hearing, and so you need 3 sources, but you only have 2, and so you're going to embellish. You're going to invent a source. You're going to add some shading, some information, things you wish people had said because it makes a better story or it makes you sound more credible. There's a really famous example of this, a man by the name of Stephen Glass. And he started out doing the same thing. It was just, oh, I just need one more piece of information. I just need one more source to kind of verify things. And by the end of his career, he was creating entire stories out of whole cloth. And it was just complete fabrication. And he was a very famous journalist who had a very famous downfall for this exact reason. He wanted to write the good story and he couldn't get it fast enough. So he just started making stuff up. Another thing that you might be tempted to do is sell a source out. Now, we have things like shield laws to protect journalists and their sources, but there are numerous examples where, for example, the United States Supreme Court says it is a matter of national security for us to know who is telling this journalist this piece of information. And they are going to subpoena you and they are going to ask you to reveal your sources on the inside. Is it ethical to live up to your promise and not reveal your source like you tell them you wouldn't? Or is it ethical to protect national security and reveal it to the Supreme Court? So when we talk about media ethics, what we're talking about is you as a journalist's responsibility to be accurate and truthful, to inform the public in a logical fashion, to not do things that would boost your career but freak the public out or actually sound wrong or aren't as verified as you're making it seem like they are. And when we talk about media law, what we're talking about is the fact that you are allowed to go out and get this information. And because it's in the best interest of the nation and a constitutional right that you have, businesses, people, and the government can't stop you from trying to gather that information. All right, I hope this helped you understand it, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.